Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days. As it does look likely we're going to be seeing pretty average conditions, some rainfall around, temperatures not too warm, not too cool either, plenty of dry and sunny weather for some as well, much more typical sort of second half of August sort of conditions, not the sort of heat wave we've been having or the very severe thunderstorms we saw earlier this week, so much more towards average. We'll then have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, ECMWF, and we'll have a look at the ECMWF Ensembles and the GFS Ensembles as well. We'll also have a look at the ECMWF anomalies of the ensembles, which we haven't looked at really since the winter time, but we'll start to integrate that back into the videos as well, and that'll be able to show us where the high pressure, low pressure systems are for the ensembles, as we have got a very interesting situation coming up over the next couple of weeks. It looks likely that higher pressure is going to be moving back in control of the UK. But we are getting to the time of year where cooler air masses are starting to form to our north. Now, we're not going to see anything cold. Let me make that clear. Nothing cold is coming up at all. But the positioning of this high pressure is going to decide whether we're going to see some very warm, hot conditions, heat wave-like conditions for the end of August and start of September that we saw on some of the runs yesterday, and we are still seeing on some of the runs today, or whether we could even go into a cooler northerly or northeasterly, perhaps to start September. Again, it's nothing cold, probably would bring temperatures into the mid-teens, maybe high teens in the south, and could bring in a risk of cold nights. Maybe you can't even rule out isolated frosts over some hills and mountains in Scotland. So there is very big uncertainty, exact flow coming around this high pressure system. Hot air off the continent or cooler air in from the North Atlantic and up towards the Arctic as well. And you'll be able to see in the second half of the video why there is that uncertainty. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So do start on the live radar. You can see there are showers around, some heavy thundery showers across Northern Ireland and parts of western Scotland as well. They are scattered though along a bit of a weather front. Just bring some precipitation in, but elsewhere it is pretty dry. The far southeast got a few showers and some lighter colours there, so some very heavy torrential rain within some of the showers, but most of it is lighter. But you can see across most of England, most of Wales, quite a lot of eastern Scotland, and quite large parts of Republic of Ireland and some parts of Northern Ireland. It is dry with some cloud, but plenty of sunshine around as well. And those temperatures are responding to the sunshine. And we are seeing temperatures again today in around the low to maybe mid-20s across the East Anglia, the East Midlands, down into London. But we have generally got cooler air coming in off the Atlantic. So it does mean further northwards and westwards, those temperatures are much more towards average, maybe even slightly below average under some of the precipitation and thicker cloud. Those temperatures back into the mid to high teens. Now, one thing we do have to remember over the coming weeks is the average temperatures that we do have are going to be dropping. We're not at that sort of low 20s average that we normally see through the middle of summer. July, in the areas in the south, the average temperature is around 22, 23 degrees, but that will slowly start dropping. And at some point, perhaps in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we will see a step change away from these generally average days of low 20s in the south, back down to more mid-teens, low teens. We always do see these step changes in the spring and the autumn. Spring going from colder conditions, frost, things like that, up to warm summer-like conditions. Normally happens in around the May period. And then we'll also see a step change to cooler autumnal wintry conditions, perhaps normally in October, maybe sometime September. Of course, we can still see warmer periods. We can see colder periods in May and June, for example. But we do always see these step changes coming. And I do suspect it will be here within the next 4 to 6 weeks, where suddenly the average temperature in the day is only in the mid to low teens, with jackets and coats needed once again. So we're going to have to watch out for that step change. It is going to be coming up, but at the moment our average temperatures are still in the high teens, low 20s, still comfortable conditions, still reasonably warm for most. So if you go over to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days, now if we run through this afternoon, you can see a lot of showers in the north and west, but nothing too crazy. Of course, this evening it's pretty dry, but some precipitation pushing into the far west and giving some heavy, maybe some quite torrential downpours there along this cold front here, a convergence zone. You can see that from this really narrow but red-orangey band. So this convergence zone will be seeing, or line convection, moving through there. Basically, where we see convection forming right along the boundary between the cold and the warmer air. If we look at the upper air temperatures, you'll be able to see that much colder air behind this down to 1 or 2 degrees at Andrew VHPA, 6 or 7 in front of it. And this cold front is producing this line convection, and yeah, could give 15 to 20 minutes of torrential rain, maybe thunder and lightning, some very gusty wind. So do keep an eye on that. It is swinging through early in the morning, and you can see it does start to disintegrate around the early afternoon, sort of fading away into showers. Elsewhere, showers could be around, but we could still see areas of that line convection holding, and we'll just have to see when that does move through. So please do stay aware of that and keep an eye on the radar. Again, it will move through quite quickly, won't give any medium to long-term impacts, but short-term, in sort of that 15 to 20 minutes it does sweep through, it could be quite wild out there for a time. Bad driving conditions, and you don't really want to be out in it. So do keep an eye out for that. And for Saturday evening into Sunday, again, showers around but reasonably dry, and through Sunday we see a weather front approaching from the southwest through overnight Sunday into Monday, giving an absolute soaking across England and Wales. Again, not expecting huge amounts of rainfall, but a good 6 to 12 millimetres, quite widely looking likely with those sort of precipitation intensities there. So widespread soaking, that'll be very good for the drought conditions we have, although we have seen thunderstorms early this week dumping a month's plus rainfall in some areas. Some areas saw very little, only a couple millimetres, or even some saw none. But this sort of low pressure system with these weather fronts would give widespread rainfall, which a lot of people will enjoy for the gardens, the farmers, and just general vegetation. And of course, the hosepipe bans we do have at the moment. If we're seeing rain like this, no one really needs to use their hosepipe out on the grass or plants. So good thing this is coming through early hours of Monday, and it is falling overnight, most of it at least, clearing by around lunchtime. So won't affect many people's days. A lot of this precipitation moving through around midnight to 6 a.m, so that will be good. And you can see through Monday afternoon, generally under lower pressure, so heavy, maybe thundery showers breaking out as well, but nothing too substantial at this stage for as we head into Tuesday. Just showers, sunshine and showers around, and continued bouts of precipitation. So you can see over the next 5 days, there's a lot of rain around for some, there's a lot of sunshine around, and clouds around as well, but plenty of dry weather. So it's not looking too bad at all, really, just as I said at the start of the video, average sort of conditions. Now, if you look at those temperatures, you can see this afternoon those temperatures rising to the low to mid-20s, widely 20 to 24 degrees, but further north and westwards, cooler towards the mid to high teens. As we head through to Saturday, you can see those temperatures quite warm still in the south and east, 23, 24. You can see that weather front moving through that line convection, dropping the temperature down to maybe only 14, 15 degrees as it moved through, but elsewhere it is mid to high teens. As we head through to Sunday afternoon, you see those temperatures still 23, 24 in the south and east, so still really quite pleasant elsewhere, mid to high teens. And into Monday, again, widely in those low 20s or even mid-20s. We do have quite a warm air mass in because of the lower pressure that has run in off the Atlantic. And you can see, yeah, widely in the high single digits to low teens at 850 HPA. So pretty warm conditions there. And as we head through to Tuesday afternoon, you can see once again those temperatures rising to perhaps 23 to 25 degrees. So pretty pleasant again. Widely high teens, low 20s elsewhere in the north and the west. So still warm summer-like conditions, but nothing too exceptional. In the short term, mid to longer range, as we'll see in a minute, the potential starts to rise for hotter conditions, getting towards those mid to high 20s, maybe even back into the 30s on some ensemble and operational runs. So if you go and have a look at the 6 o'clock run from the GFS, we'll put the temperatures on because it's pretty obvious to see where the low pressure, high pressure is, because you see a massive low pressure system parked over Iceland, and that's giving us the precipitation to our north and our west at the moment and over the next few days. It will continue to sweep through, and then as we go through Sunday, you see there's a little low pressure system sweeping through, a little system there that's giving precipitation. Difficult to see on these charts, but it is a localised system giving that precipitation through Sunday night into Monday. And you see for Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, you see a bit of a waft of warmer air up from the south. That's why those temperatures could be in the mid-20s for some on Monday and Tuesday in the east, but still low pressure dominated to our north. But it's beyond that. In around a week's time, higher pressure starts to build in. You can see warm air to our south starting to waft up, but also colder air masses starting to form over northern Canada and Greenland. Nothing substantially cold, but chilly air masses. Now, we do have that real warm air just to our south and east, and it could give temperatures in the mid to high 20s, maybe 30 degrees in the far southeast. But cooler air is building in from the north. We just generally have a big area of high pressure parked over the top of us, warm, maybe even heat wave in the south with a 15-degree isotherm coming in. Very hot conditions there. That would give temperatures in the high 20s, even low 30s in 10 days' time. But the high pressure just stays over the top of us and eventually sort of retrogresses out to the Atlantic. And what happens? We go into a northerly flow. And this is where we have the big uncertainties. We still have extremely warm, hot air masses to our south. The 15-degree isotherm just nudging on southwest England. But we also have colder air in the North Atlantic, and it all depends on the orientation of the high pressure. Because by the end of this GFS Operational Run, the high pressure is out towards Iceland and Greenland. We're plunging into a northerly wind. Again, we saw this sort of patterns in November to March time. It would be bitterly cold, but it's just generally chilly if we did see this with cooler air coming in. But if we do run it on to earlier in the run, you can see the high pressure over the top of us putting an east or southeasterly wind, which will be much warmer and drier. So it's all about the positioning of the high pressure over the next couple of weeks. We could be going for big swings from very warm, hot conditions to suddenly very cool, maybe even cold conditions. And the one thing we do have to keep an eye on this sort of air mass is, even though it doesn't look too cold, it is quite cold this time of year, a good 6 to 8 degrees below average. And we have to look at the 2-meter temperatures as well. Overnight, as I said, we could see those temperatures dropping to low single digits, maybe even towards freezing in a few spots over the hills. But as you saw in the south, still 25 degrees. So that's why we've got a massive uncertainty, because it all depends on the positioning of that higher pressure and the flow going around it. So if we do compare it to the GEM, see how that's showing over the next 10 days. Again, low pressure pushing in at the moment. If we do put the air masses on, again, just continued low pressure pushing in. And eventually around 7 days' time, we see high pressure build in. But it builds over the top of us, and the hot air stays to our south. This would be a much drier, but temperatures around maybe slightly below average. And under the centre of that high, the air mass isn't that warm. We put on those 2-meter temperatures, and you go to the, you can see there at midnight on Monday the 29th of August, maybe mid to high single digits, which doesn't sound too cold, but that is chilly for this time of year, and again, would be a few degrees cooler than that in colder spots, and in the countryside, and over higher ground as well. So this is why we have to really keep an eye on it, because we are getting to the time of year where if we don't have a hot air mass over us, it's very difficult to generate that warmth. The sun strength starts to decrease, and the nighttime hours starts to increase. The time it is dark, it starts to increase quite rapidly, so we can get a lot of cooling overnight. So we're just going to have to see how this does play out. Both the GFS and the GEM both have high pressure building in, both have potential warm heat wave conditions. Definitely, if this high pressure from the GEM is slightly orientated differently, would put up a southerly wind. Look at the 850 HPA temperatures. Warm air, if we go to the European outlook, it's not too far away. It's just across parts of France and Italy. But just because the high pressure is orientated with more of an easterly flow, it means we're not tapping into that, and we're tapping into cooler air in off the North Sea. So we'll have to see how it does play out, of course, but at the moment, high pressure definitely does look like the major factor within this, and its orientation is going to decide the sort of air mass. If we look at the ECMWF Operational Run and have a look at what that's showing, again, low pressure running off the Atlantic at the moment, and we move beyond that, you see high pressure building in, a bit of a weird system there with loads of little low pressure systems mixing in, but you can see high pressure is firmly in control, and the air masses are a little bit muddled. Cool air trying to filter in around the high, but also warmer air trying to waft up within it. And you look at the temperature deviation, it's a little bit all over the place, a little bit above average in a few spots, around average, or maybe even slightly below average in a few spots. So this ECMWF run is a little bit more muddled, would go very warm if that high pressure just migrated slightly further eastwards, wafting up that 20-degree isotherm that's across parts of northern Spain and southern France. But equally, if the high pressure stayed near to the Atlantic, out towards Iceland, maybe migrating towards Greenland, it would pull in this much cooler green colours from the North Sea and up towards the Arctic. So big uncertainty as we are, as I said, starting to get to that time of year where we do have big contrasting air masses. Cold air starting to build to our north, very warm air, hot air still lingering to our south. The orientation of this high pressure will decide what sort of air mass we do see. So, if we do go into the ECMWF Ensembles, again, these are the anomaly charts. We haven't looked at these really since the winter time. They're very, very good, showing us where blocking positions are, low pressure systems are, and again, it just shows us what the ensembles are, what sort of scenarios they're going for. So do skip out to around day 7, because that's when we start to see a bit of uncertainty. 168 hours. You can all see high pressure is building in. You can see 28, including control run, of high pressure migrating in off the Atlantic, but a bit of a northwesterly flow with still low pressure involved. That would still be reasonably cool, a little bit unsettled in the north, but high pressure is building in. Another 21, including the operational run, are much more progressive with that higher pressure, stretching over the top of us, turning us drier, and will be slightly warmer. And only 2 of high pressure push further northwards, and low pressure to our south. That would be pulling in a south to southeasterly wind. That would be very warm, but also unsettled with thunderstorms. But only 2 are going for this, so it's very much a minority option. If we do move out to 200 hours, so another day or 2 beyond, you can see high pressure building in on majority of these runs, stretching in off, controlling the weather. So you can see that on all of these scenarios here, high pressure in control, but its orientation. 26, I've got more of an easterly flow, that would be slightly warmer. 18, including the control and operational run, have more of a northerly flow with the positioning of the high pressure slightly further out into the Atlantic, that would be slightly cooler. And 7 have low pressure centred over the top of us, but with high pressure blocking to our north, it would be a south or southeasterly flow, so that would be hot air feeding into low pressure, producing a lot of showers and thunderstorms. If we move out to 240 hours, day 10, you can see 26 of high pressure over the top of us, easterly flow, still cool air, could migrate around the high pressure, but generally looking not too bad. Another 18, high pressure just to our west, that would be pulling more of a northeasterly flow, slightly cooler. And another 7 parked over the top of us with a southerly flow, that would be hot and quite unsettled with that little low there, thundery weather within that. So you can see at 300 hours, we've got 16 going for high pressure just out to our Atlantic, a bit of a northerly flow, that would be cooler. 13, high pressure over the top of us, just to our north, pushing an easterly flow, that would be much warmer. Another 12, low pressure centre to our south, high pressure to our north, that would be an easterly or southeasterly flow, very hot, unsettled. And 10 sort of in between systems, that would just be mixed, sort of average sort of air masses there with no real distinct direction. And if we go right to the end of the run, 384 hours, or 360 hours, still high pressure involved. 16 going for that northerly flow, similar to the GFS, so could be seeing a northerly blast for the start of September. 13 high pressure over the top and to the north of the UK with a southerly flow, very warm and hot. 12 over the top of the UK, that would be chillier with the northerly flow, but again depends how hot the air is over the top of us while that high pressure builds in. And another 10 sort of mixed, but generally would be warm with the air direction still coming in off the continent. So you see massive uncertainty, all depending on the orientation of the high pressure. But at the moment, there is no real distinct scenario. It does definitely look like we will see warmer, dry conditions at times, but also a real possibility of colder, northerly winds, perhaps in the 10 to 14 day time frame. But it's only hints and it's only appeared in the last day or so, so we'll have to keep an eye on it and see if we do see any consistency over the next sort of 5 days or so. So if you now go to the ensembles, looking at the line charts for this, again, around average air mass at the moment, but turning above average for the start of the next working week. And that's why 25, maybe 26, 27 degrees is possible in the south. And then there comes uncertainty. You see some runs, including the operational GFS, go warm, very hot perhaps on some of the runs, getting toward the mid-teens at 850 HPA. A good quarter to a third are up towards sort of mid to high 20s, touching maybe even heatwave conditions. But similarly, perhaps a quarter are going for around average or below average, cooler air masses moving in. One consistent signal is there are a few showers around, but nothing too crazy. So it does mean generally high pressure is going to be in control. But there is a lot of spread. Yes, the general ensemble chart, the ensemble mean is above average by a good 2 or 3 degrees, but there's a lot of scatter. So that's why we can't say anything too definitive. Just the most likely scenario probably is for at least warmer and hotter, perhaps, conditions, at least until the end of August, before the start of September, as we saw on the ECMWF ensemble charts, and on some of the operational runs, including the GFS, could go much, much colder, especially in the north, right towards the start of September. And you can see that by having a look at the sea level pressure, generally quite high, around 1,000 to 1,030 millibars in that gap, which is high pressure. Around 1,015 is sort of general mean sea level pressure, with below that lower pressure, above that higher pressure. And if we do look at the ECMWF Ensembles, just to finish the video, look at the midnight run. Again, around average at the moment, spiking perhaps early next week with that heavier precipitation through early hours of Monday. But the ECMWF Ensembles are much more towards average. There are still some very warm runs toward the mid-teens, but there are similarly quite a few getting towards the low single digits, which would be chilly. Temperatures probably around the mid to high teens with that. So we do really need to keep an eye on this. GFS still maintaining that warmer sort of conditions. The ECMWF definitely controlling more of a cooler sort of scenario. No definitively colder than average, nothing definitively above average. But that cooling trend comes in around 7 days' time. So it is still far enough in the future that there is still a lot of uncertainty with it, and it can still change. So we'll just have to keep an eye on what happens with this. Again, as we saw from the ensemble anomalies and the operational runs, it all depends on the positioning of the high pressure system, and that only is going to be deciphered with more runs and more time, and until we get sort of nearer to the actual event. So we'll have to see how it does play out. I'll keep you updated on here as always. But for the time being, warmer conditions is still possible, but also some cooler conditions as we start September. So don't put the shorts away yet, don't get the coats out yet, just keep an eye on the forecast. For the time being, it's generally average summer conditions with those temperatures in the low 20s, with some showers around, some drier warm conditions. So nothing substantial, no substantial change coming in the short term, but perhaps something a lot warmer towards the end of August, and perhaps something a lot cooler towards the start of September. Could flip-flop, as I said, very, very quickly depending on the positioning of the higher pressure. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Nothing too eventful coming up in the near future. So that is a big change that we've had the last month, where we've had heat waves in the short to mid-term pretty much consistently for the last month, and the risk of thunderstorms as well. So dying down quite a lot. So hopefully you can enjoy it, this sort of more mundane, average sort of weather. So as I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe you, and I'll see you again for another video soon.